We're live. Let's get the hair done.
When now it's live?
It's live.
Okay, hey everybody, welcome to Tea Time with Tynan.
Hello everybody, here with my friend Nick, and we're mostly here to chat, and maybe a little bit here to promote his new book, 2 Hour Cocktail Party. These just are always up in his don't worry about that.
My job today is to take care of the tea water. So we are drinking some tea, and I have to keep the water at 96 degrees Celsius.
Told him that's the most important job here. Secondary is talking about his book. Today we are drinking, for the few tea people, we're drinking Ali Shan from Amsterdam, which I got at that incredible place Formosa.
Yes.
The lady would not let me pay for this tea.
Wow.
Yeah.
So I think you actually sent me to her tea shop when
Yes.
I went to Amsterdam.
Yeah, you went there too.
And you told me about this shop, so you've known her for a long time.
I've known her for 7 years, but I only met her once 7 years ago.
Yeah.
Huh? What do you think?
I like it. This
Good, right?
is an oolong, right?
So too long. Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to share on my socials as well.
All right.
Welcome, everybody. So we're using a new camera, and we're doing a setup that I set up here. If anyone hears us, just tell us how the sound sounds.
Oh yeah, yeah. Can you hear this? Okay.
Yeah.
Nick has all these crazy. Nick buys more stuff on Amazon than anybody I know, and so we got to try a couple different cameras. Oh yeah, that's yeah. Come on, the water is the important thing. Not the stupid posters.
Oh shoot. Okay, 97C. So when you need the hot water, then you just let me know.
Sounds good. Great. Thank you for letting us know.
Okay, good.
So Marcher, is that how I pronounce it? I used to know. It's been a little while. Great. Wow. Looking sharp. I'm going to assume that's me, not you.
No, for sure it's you. For sure it's you, because it's the name tag.
It's the name tag. So we're wearing name tags. Oh, wow, it's like reversed. We're wearing name tags because at every one of Nick's parties, you have to wear a name tag. And it's actually one of my favorite things about Nick's parties, because I'm really bad with names.
Yeah.
And when you have to think about what somebody's name is, it's so awkward you can't focus on the conversation. So I've always really liked that.
It just helps. So now I can find the link to this on your...
On my probably Twitter.
Okay.
Oh, Brave browser for you.
Yeah.
Oh, pronunciation was good. Yes, I'm putting that on the screen. Thank you. Nailing that. Well, it's just in Amsterdam, so, got to practice a little bit. So we can talk about anything, but while we have Nick here, what we should really talk about, something that a lot of people ask me about in coaching, events, stuff like that, is how to have a great friend circle, how to have a better social life. And Nick is like the hub of that sort of stuff. So great opportunity to ask Nick about that stuff. Maybe I'll have some stuff to say too. Got about an hour. Let's do it.
Great. Thank you for watching. Today is a Sunday, and you have chosen to spend time with me and Tynan, and I'm thankful for that. And I would love to talk about, so I have this new book. Should I just...
Give us a little, what's your book about?
Okay, quick spiel. The book is called The 2 Hour Cocktail Party. And just as a heads up, there's not a single drink recipe that's in the book. So just like Tynan, I don't drink alcohol. But the phrase cocktail party encapsulates a social hangout that's casual, that's less intimidating than a dinner party. I think that we're at this moment now where after COVID, people have kind of forgotten how to gather, and they're awkward. And more importantly, most adults haven't made a new friend in like 3 years. So this book will help you build big relationships by hosting small gatherings. It can help you meet new people. It can help you deepen existing relationships. For me, it's really good for those kind of acquaintances, the people that maybe you bump into at the cafe or your tea shop or the grocery store or your local Starbucks, and you see them and you're like, oh, we should hang out, but then you never do. This book will give you a formula for how to bring those people into your life.
Nice. And I used to go to these parties all the time in New York, especially when I was single. I was more interested in making new friends. I was spending more time in New York and wanted to know people there.
Yes.
By far the best social thing I would ever do is go to Nick's party. It was like an awesome way to meet new friends, and still have some friends from those probably 4 or 5 parties I went to in New York.
Now, as I was writing the book, I was testing some new ideas. And one of the things that I was testing was the spontaneous keynote speech, and made Tynan do that. And he loved it. And it was a really great opportunity for somebody to give a speech out there. And do you want to just speak about that? How good that memory was?
Yeah, what he would do is we would show up at this, I remember one time in particular, I flew in from Japan, a little bit exhausted. He's like, by the way, we're having a party tonight. I'm like, oh, okay, great. He does some icebreakers, which are normal. And he says, and now the great news is my friend Tynan is going to give this keynote speech on the top 5 things he loves and would recommend that you do in Tokyo. Did not tell me in advance. And so I had to give the speech. My brother was also there at the time. This is the first Nick party he had been to. And I'll never forget the look on his face. He's like, this is the kind of part, like, I'm going to have to make a keynote speech. And he just left. He still talks about that. He's like, your friend Nick is a freak. He's like, I'm so glad I left it. Didn't have to give a speech.
That was an advanced level move, but Tynan did well because he has incredible social skills. And that's not in the book. That ultimately was not something that I teach people to do.
But it actually was a good move because then, like, so many people would be like, oh, you mentioned that place in Japan. What I like about Nick's parties is that instead of people having the same conversation over and over again, there's a sort of structure that sort of lets you have a few hooks with everybody on stuff that they might want to talk to you about or you might want to talk to them about. Because normally I hate parties. I mean, I guess now I hate all parties probably. But I hated going to parties where it's so awkward. Nick's parties are awkward in a different way where you're forced to connect versus kind of not knowing what you're supposed to do.
Yes, exactly. Wow. I'm just gonna put that on the Amazon page. Yeah, Nick's parties are awkward in a different way.
They are awkward.
Okay, great. Wow. Thank you for everybody, for all the people that are tuning in. We're gonna say hello to all of you guys and girls. And we're just excited. Today's Sunday morning. You chose to spend it with us, so thank you very much.
What's up, Christopher from Arizona, Desert State. Southwest is coming up in this decade. Michael from LA. Hello. John. What's up?
Hey, John. What's going on?
Noah just sent me an incredible email. I haven't replied yet about he researched all of the titanium teaware. See, I travel with this titanium teaware. He researched it and found all these other ones, and he sent me a list of like every single one.
Really?
Yeah. So I've looked at some of them. They look really cool.
I can't wait to hear Noah's question.
So he has a question.
Yeah.
How can hosting parties help you build your friend group?
I have thoughts on this, obviously, because I wrote a book about it, but I'm curious if Tynan, how you would say it, because you're a better speaker than I am.
I think that's definitely not true. I think what's nice is that I think something I've learned about friend groups is that the strength of a friend group is the sum of all of the connections in it. So it's not how well I know every single person that's part of it, but it's also how well they know each other and whether they're going to hang out when I'm not there, whether they're going to form those connections. And when you have regular contact where it's easy for people to show up, they form those strong connections with each other. And I think that's ultimately what makes a really strong friend group.
I like that idea. I'm writing down friend group, sum of all the interconnections.
I'm gonna have to edit this book again.
One thing that I think about to answer Noah's question, how can hosting parties help you build your friend group, is that we use these parties, these cocktail parties, sort of as a way to audition people who we want to get to know better. The people that you meet who maybe it's a jump to invite them out to dinner. Instead, this is an easy way to say, hey, I'm hosting a cocktail party. Why don't you come over? And you get to know them a little bit better. And it's such a generous thing to invite somebody new to a party. So think about that. All these people want to hang out with Tynan. Tynan, I'd love to pick your brain and buy you a cup of coffee. He would say no to. However, if you said, Tynan, I'd love to invite you to a party. Well, he'd also say no to that.
I was going to say.
But he would do it in a slightly more respectful way.
Very much.
That's a little test call for.
Oh my God! And we have no water too.
People are trying to listen in. So that's a way to think about how you can use. Okay, should I pour this on it?
Yeah, that's it. Wow.
That's a way to think about hosting these parties as a way to bring people into your network. And you'll notice, which maybe Noah can say, that once you start to host a couple of these, people start to introduce you as the person who hosts parties. You get referrals and people are like, oh my gosh, you have to go to one of Noah's parties. He hosts these really cool parties. It's one of the biggest benefits that new hosts often remark about.
And being the hub of a friend group, especially in the early days, is like such a powerful thing because you can use these sorts of parties, these sorts of things to filter in who you want to be in that friend group. And then as it grows stronger, maybe you're not the hub anymore. Maybe there's a lot of hubs, but you got to sort of pick who was in it.
Being that hub of a friend group is
Yeah.
huge. And the secret is, well, so one, you know that everybody wants to know somebody who brings people together. Like in every social group, for example, who are your friends in San Francisco that bring people? They're always the ones that are hosting a picnic or a party or a Super Bowl party or something like that. Everybody wants to know somebody like that. And the secret is that anybody can be that person. All it takes is to step up and to host a cocktail party. My book is extremely tactical. If you like Tynan stuff because it's very tactical and it tells you exactly how to do something, then you'll love my book because there's the scripts, a specific checklist. It's very much a how-to guide.
Nice. Let's see, we got a few more questions here.
Thanks for submitting questions. If you have a
Yes,
question, you
thank
can
you.
submit it therein and we're gonna try to answer them.
This should be proceed. Nick, how are you going to proceed with spontaneous keynote speech after that test? You going to do it? You're going to throw me under. This is why I can't go to any of your parties anymore.
Yes, I'm not going to
Definitely gonna do it to me.
So I will say this. I do like to do what I call lightning talks, and it's a modified module of that. And it does involve now asking permission and giving people a little bit heads up and not just a spontaneous one. But I do like doing that. And at some of my advanced hosts, I tell them about the concept called lightning talks, which is where you get to ask some people at your party, maybe the day before or maybe an hour before, would you be willing to make a 45-second speech about something that you're passionate about or excited? Now, I just want to say, this is advanced. This is not what's in my book. This is like advanced level hosts where you can manage and feel people's energy. But it is one of my favorite things, and I do it at a lot of my parties, because so many of my friends have unique and quirky hobbies or jobs or nonprofits that they love, and I want to give them a stage at the party. The benefit for them is afterwards, just like Tynan experienced, everybody wants to talk to you, and they're going to talk about something you're experienced and knowledgeable on. So it's another way to create new conversations and connections at the party.
I remember Nick made me or invited me
Yes.
to do a speech about, it was right when we bought the island. I came back and he had me give a speech about that. And there was like a line of people that wanted to ask me about it. And I was so excited about it, of course, because we'd gotten this thing. And there was even some people who were doing like rainwater collection. So they had like really interesting things to tell me.
That feeling of having people stand up in line to wait
cool.
for you at a party, that's a cool
It
feeling.
is a cool feeling. From Denny, one thing I really appreciate about Nick's social skills is pulling friends with interesting questions, involving others via inquiry while leading the charge, asking those questions. Exactly. Right.
Yeah. Using that to pull out of people. By the way, at all of my parties, Danny, we do, Denny, we lead rounds of icebreakers where people get to say their name, what they do for work, or if they don't want to talk about work, something they're excited about. And then the third part is the kind of icebreaker question. And oftentimes, because I've hosted so much and because I have such unique and interesting friends, they'll sandbag their what do I do for work? And I'll be able to pull that out of them to brag on them a little bit. I think that's a move of an advanced host, where generally a lot of people are very, they're just trying to play it down. But if someone didn't know, for example, that Tynan has written 4 best-selling books, well, he's not going to go out of his way to say that. But if he's at my party and be like, oh, and he wrote this book, Superhuman by Habit, that like literally people send me emails wanting him to be a keynote speaker at their business or company to talk about habit forming, then that's a really neat way to share and shine on them a little bit.
Yeah, that was always a pickup tactic too, is that there are certain things that if you say to a girl, it really comes off as bragging and weird. But if you just have your friend talk to her while you talk to whoever he's talking to,
right?
Like, did you know that he's this? And there's something different. It's like of sharing information in that way.
Something I haven't spoken about, but is how amazing this book would be for someone that was focused on naturally building a dating circle, or someone who is interested in dating and finding a relationship. I haven't talked about it at all, and I don't know how to, but this is the best, it's the best possible funnel for your meet. It's incredible.
Well, here's a good one. It's gonna be an interesting one. You ready for this?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Everybody who comes to this has names I can't pronounce. You notice that? Nobody's just named Tom over here.
This guy has sent me, I think his name is Wojciech. Is that how I pronounce it right?
That.
Wojciech says, I've been reading through Nick's book. Thanks for sharing. Which, by the way, if you want a copy of my book, you can send me an email to nick@party.io. Pro. That's Nick at
emailing you there.
party.party.pro. And I'll send you the first 5 chapters for free. Wojciech says, I've been reading through Nick's book. Thanks for sharing. It's great so far. Very actionable. Also love Tynan's superhuman social skills. Where do you differ in your approaches to social life or skills? I love this question. Tynan.
I want you to go first. I want to see what you say.
So I know Tynan, and Tynan, think about somebody like Tynan who has literally had in-depth conversations with not hundreds and not thousands, but perhaps tens of thousands of people, who is so tuned in to the social things. I can even give you an example. I feel that I am rather tuned in myself.
I'd say so.
And yet when I hang out with Tynan, he will make little modifications to the conversation when we meet somebody new to tailor it to their energy levels and comfort levels, I think. Yeah. And he does that in a really good way because I can be very excitable, and he will do a little check-in. He's seen things from another thing. So with me, I love to meet a lot of new people, and I am at a point in my life where I'm not married. I don't have a house. I'm new to town, and I am looking to meet some new people. Tynan doesn't at all think about that sort of top of the funnel. Would that be safe to say?
That's basically what I was going to say. Is I think that Nick sees the best in everybody. I think like at this point, like I don't really want new friends. So when I meet somebody, I'm like, how can I not be friends with this person? When Nick sees new people, I think he's very good at seeing the positives in people and like how they could add to a social situation. And he will bring them all together. And then when some of them turn out to sort of be duds in one way or another, I think Nick navigates that really well of like not letting somebody tank it, but sort of helping them integrate in some sort of way. So I think the way Nick manages like a big group of people, how he brings new people in, is really impressive. There was another question where Wojciech asked if I had ever hosted a Nick style party, and I never did because I don't need to. I just go to Nick's. I mean, really, that's sort of true. It's like for a while, especially where I was most interested in making friends was probably New York. And it's like, well, Nick's are.
Dang, we could have juiced the name tag yesterday at the family function.
We could have. Yeah, that's true.
He did do one thing yesterday, or I helped with one thing yesterday at a family function that Tynan went to, and I hired a photographer for Tynan. And that is a pro move that anyone listening here, it is very affordable to hire a photographer, approximately $150. You can find somebody on Craigslist or a lot of sources. And the photos that you get out of it are just truly remarkable. They're way better than if you're just snapping on your phone. And a group photo is something that a host, it's a beautiful thing to put up on your fridge and a memory to have. So that's a pro tip for any watchers and listeners now, that it's way more affordable to hire a photographer and you'll keep these memories forever.
I think one of the cool things about Nick's parties is that he does a few little things like that make it clear it's not just like, hey, come over to my apartment and let's hang out. Like there's certain like touches that make it feel like a level up. And I think that then when somebody goes to one, they're a lot more likely to come to another one because like, oh, that's like a special event, not just like people are at my apartment.
Right. And that's something special about the party, which by the way, have you heard the mnemonic device to think about the party?
Oh boy.
So my friend Clay helped me think about this. If you want to know what my book is about, it's the NICK method of parties. Now, for Tynan, what do you think the N stands for?
N. Name tag. Gotcha.
N is for name tags. You have to have name tags at the party. If anyone has a question about why this is a hill that I will die on, please let us know in the comments.
Icebreakers
stands for icebreakers for sure. At my parties, you'll lead 3 rounds of icebreakers.
Nick does icebreakers when it's just like us and friends we've known for years, by the way.
Yes.
We went on a cruise one time. He stands up at lunch, day 4, everybody knows each other, with like a ream of paper. He's like, all right, well, let's do some icebreakers. I'm just going to flip to page 56 here. There's some good ones in here. He had thousands of icebreakers.
Now, we have a mutual friend whose name is Noah.
Yeah. And
I was at dinner with Noah and some friends the other day, and Noah gave me a little burn.
Really? It's so hard to imagine.
It was a little hard to imagine.
Yeah, wow.
Noah was in the middle of a conversation, and I blew that harmonica.
Yeah.
Said it's time for ice break.
That's so shocking.
Noah goes, oh, looks like Nick needs attention.
You want to do one hallmark of Nick's parties is the harmonica.
Yes.
And you get kind of a warning harmonica, and then you get a real harmonica.
Yes.
You want to demonstrate?
So there is a party harmonica. Noah Adams in Chicago. I'm curious if you have started to use the party harmonica. But this is a harmonica, and I know it sounds super silly, but oops, sorry, that's the warning.
Yeah, I was going to say, I feel like I got to stop any conversation apart of now.
This is the call to attention. It's a...
There it is. I haven't heard that in a while.
And that is that it's time for icebreakers. Why do I use this? Why would we use a harmonica? Think about a very loud party. You're hosting your home. 15 people are talking excitedly. Maybe there's music in the background. A lot of times people will try to scream, hey, everybody, everybody, everybody. And it's like, it's awkward. It's kind of a buzzkill to yell, or they'll ding on a glass, and that like kind of works. But I've just seen too many awkward times when people are yelling and they don't feel powerful in their own space. They don't feel like the leader. Versus with a harmonica, it's a cute little sound that is playful. It's a happy noise, and it gets people to stop and know that like, oh, what's about to happen? And so we do use a harmonica. Okay, so back to this, N-I-C-K. The C stands for cocktails only. Do not serve food. This is not an opportunity for dinner. And then the K stands for kick them out at the end. Kick them out. It's only a 2-hour cocktail party.
Nick's kickouts are hilarious, by the way. I love that. We have a few good ones here. I want to do.
Okay.
I think this is a good one for you.
My water's ready.
Where is it? Over here. All right. I have my feet in a few different social circles that don't seem like they would mix well. Should I host different parties for these different groups? That's a good question.
That is a really, really good question. And I would challenge you to ask about why you think that they wouldn't work well. Have you ever been introduced to somebody, Tynan, where someone is like, you have got to meet this person. They are just like you.
Yeah.
When I do, I'm like, I don't want to meet that person.
Yeah, that's not the person I would hang out with at all.
I got plenty of me in my life. I'm curious, and I would challenge you on why you think that they wouldn't mix well, because one of the beautiful parts of these cocktail parties that I host is mixing together the various groups of people. There's a beautiful quote in the party that says, grab like a teacher, a scientist, someone who works in tech, someone who works as a barista, and you mix all these different people together and it creates new conversations. The reason that your party will be successful is because you are helping your friends to make new friends. And we are going through a loneliness epidemic. Coming out of COVID, most people have not made a new friend in many years. This is your chance to help your friends make new friends. And it's the low-key, sustainable way why these parties are very successful for you and for everybody who attends. So I would just challenge that, oh, I don't think my friends will get along. That's kind of the exciting part, when you can bring together different groups and they all get to mix together.
And if they both like you, there's probably something they have in common.
Yes.
I have a funny story about that I think you were actually there for it.
Uh-huh.
So we were doing, I used to do these Japan train trips. We get 10 people together. We'd all go on this trip together. And I guess I can say the names because they're both kind of publicly known people. But my friend Leo Babauta was coming on the trip, and my friend Ben Yu was coming on the trip. And Leo is like sort of very like, Zen, very low energy, not in a bad way, but it's just like very peaceful and relaxed, long conversations. Ben Yu is like the most energy of anybody I know. And he's just like nonstop with like questions. Oh, that's so amazing. Let's do this. And I was really thinking like, we're going to be together for a week. Maybe they're going to hate each other. They're going to be stuck on this train. They were like best friends by the end of the trip. And so that was something where like, even with everything I know, I was like, these two might not get along. This might be an issue. And you just never know. And it turns out like a lot of things I love about both of them, they saw in each other. And so, I agree with Nick.
That's a really unique access point, that they're both friends with you. That is the common thread that draws these parties together and that drew your friends on the train trip. That they were friends with you, so there was some core thing that they both would be able to respect.
And I've also found that for most people, the people they want to make friends with have just like a few key traits. Like for me, when I started becoming more proactive about making friends, I realized the people that I like to be around are people who are like kind, like not just like nice and pleasant, but like have like a real kindness, like care about, want their friends to succeed and all that sort of stuff. and are also sort of ambitious in some way or another. Like they want something more. And that sounds like very common generic things, but maybe especially when I was living in San Francisco, it seemed like it was one or the other in a lot of cases. And so I think everybody probably has a few of these common traits. And if you can introduce one person that has those to somebody else with those, probably going to like each other.
Nice.
We got some other good ones here. Okay. Brendan says, is there any point in bringing up finances at these parties inappropriate? Is it appropriate to bring up finances at these parties? He's obsessed with finance and optimizing a lot of these days.
So I think, yes, it's very appropriate to, as long as you give the expectation ahead of time that you will be speaking about this. So I talk about this in my book a lot, that in the invitation and in the RSVP, we mention that there will be name tags and icebreakers. Similarly for you, Brendan, you would mention, hey, let's get together, let's make some new friends. There'll be name tags and icebreakers, and maybe even a question about finances. Giving people that expectation ahead of the party before they attend and when they sign up lets them know what to expect, so that when they show up, it's not a surprise and they're ready, they're juiced, they're primed for it.
Do you remember that time at one of your parties where you put up topics on note cards on the wall and people put hash marks on which ones they want to talk about? Do you do that still?
That is an advanced level thing. I do it now with stickers and dot voting.
Right.
So I'll briefly share to you is that if you want to have like a salon style discussion or a talk at one of your gatherings, a neat way to do that would be to write down, brainstorm a couple of ideas and questions, and then give people stickers that they get to vote. So it's dot voting, those little dot stickers. And when they come, everybody gets 5 of these stickers. And you say, use these, 1 dot equals 1 vote, to put up on the topics that you want to speak about here at the party. And then you would have a salon style discussion. That's advanced level hosting. So that's for somebody who's read my book and has hosted a couple parties and knows the fundamentals of bringing people together. As you start to grow in your skills, then you can do these advanced things.
I remember being a little surprised at the topics. Like I remember we put them up before the party and I was like, for sure these ones are going to get picked. And like one of them was, and then the other was like the least.
Shocking,
so it's kind of
right?
interesting. Yeah, it was pretty interesting. Let's see. Danny's got some really good ones coming here. Okay.
There was a question from Noah that said, what other things, I think if you scroll up a little bit, that said, +1, what do you think we can use both the 2-hour cocktail party and superhuman social skills? Could you talk about some of the high level points in superhuman social skills or things that you've heard from people that really get people juiced up about the book, that they're like, oh my God, this thing?
So I think with superhuman social skills, where I was coming from it was that I felt like I didn't have before I got into all the social skills stuff, dating stuff, pickup stuff, I felt like I didn't personally have the social skills to make new friends, to sort of build friendships, to even just be in big groups of people and be like a contributor in that situation. So the angle I was coming from is like, when you are around people, how do you express who you are? How do you show what's likable about you? How do you get that out of other people? And there's a little bit in terms of like, how do you build the circle? But I feel like your thing is actually pretty compatible with it, where that's more about like, how do you build this? How do you get this whole machine going?
Yeah.
And maybe mine would be more about like, once you get through that filter of having these parties and there's a few people you want a deep friendship or a deep connection with, how do you do that? Or even at the party, how do you conduct yourself in a way that's going to be like useful and beneficial to other people?
One thing you do a good job about is like with storytelling. And I think it's with the idea of like, you go first, sort of to maybe, and I don't know, but like, was this a thing in superhuman social skills where like you go first, you sort of show yourself and then get from other people?
Yeah. Maybe a more general way of putting it is, I try to always think in a social interaction. And now it's like this automatic, like little separate processor going in my head is like, what does this person want out of this interaction? So if it's like a little bit awkward, maybe they just want to feel comfortable. And so if I tell them a story that's kind of fun and interesting and it can let them rest for a bit, that might make them feel comfortable. Sometimes people just want to be heard, right? So sometimes there's somebody, they just want to tell their story. So then maybe I would not tell a story and I would just listen and try to find stuff that I liked about their story. Other times maybe there's a group of people and it's like, well, they want to be together in some way, or that would be a beneficial thing.
Nice.
But often, especially in new interactions, the other person is probably more nervous than me because I've done so much of this so if I lead by telling a story, something that's kind of set the stage, that's useful.
As we think about those friendships and relationships in your life, I think about my book as a little bit of like the top of the funnel, that you're meeting somebody, you've interacted with somebody in a brief interaction. Inviting them to come to one of your cocktail parties is the easiest next step to get their contact information. Imagine you meet somebody interesting, you have a 5-minute chat with them. What's the next step? Have you really created enough interest on their side or your side to go out to dinner with them, which is many times? Have you really done enough work to go out for a drink with them? I'm not sure. But the idea to say, hey, my friends and I are hosting a cocktail party in 3 weeks. Can I invite you? Lends itself to an easy way to get their contact information and invite them. And the one secret is everybody wants to be invited. Whether you show up or not, everybody wants to be invited to something. And so each time you invite somebody to an event that you're hosting, it's a little gift that you get to give.
Yeah, I think people sometimes feel awkward about, they're like, well, it feels like an imposition. But I hear from so many people where they're just like, I want to make new friends. I want to be like, how do I get around other people that I want to make friends with? And it's like, it really is like such a big gift to throw these sorts of parties. Like, it's not about like, oh, you're taking up people's time to become friends with them. It's like, no, you're creating this huge service.
Yeah.
And I think, like you said, especially after COVID, like there's just so many people that their social lives are sort of stagnated and they are looking for something more. All right, we have so many questions here. I'm going to zoom ahead a little bit here. Okay, I think this is really good.
Should I heat this one up? I'll read them.
Yeah. Denny says, I do well with cultivating friendships with folks I'm really impressed by after my foot is in the door, but I tend to struggle with bridging the gap of don't know you to know you. Any advice?
Of the idea of don't know you to know you, I would have a question for Denny of, have you tried to do sort of cold outreach, or are you just struggling with how do I make this happen? I once went to a dinner party in New York that a woman hosted, and she had a really famous author that was there. And this woman I didn't think of as like super talented. And I asked her afterwards, I said, how did you get that person to come? And she said, oh, I just invited him. I said, what do you mean? You just invited like this person? She's like, yeah, I just invited him. I probably invited him 4 times. He's always busy. But then he finally came to this one. And her thinking of like, oh yeah, I just invited him. And in my mind, I'm like, oh, well, I have to do this and I have to do this. I have another story, which is that there was a very famous woman in the museum world whose name is Nina Simon. And at the time that I was starting my last company, Museum Hack, she was a really big deal. And I was like, oh, well, let's wait to reach out to her and learn this, that, or the other. Well, it just so happened we had someone working on our team who was trying to do a blog, and they were like, oh, I'll just reach out to her to like get a quote or something. And they just like sent an email and they're like, hey, I got this back. I was like, what? You just you emailed this person? And she's like, oh yeah. She's like, write me back. I'm talking to her. I'm like, are you shitting me? Like, oh my gosh. She and I now are like best friends. She's incredible. But at the time I had built up in my head, like, I can't email until we're ready. So maybe to answer your question, Denny, the great way of how you can go from don't know you to know you is host a party and invite them to your party. And if you invite people to your party and your friends show up, that is a gift that you get to give. I can't tell you how many people I've invited to a party and they say, oh, I'm busy then. That's not a good fit for me. But like, why don't we go out for a cup of coffee? And I'd love to get to know you. When you start by adding value to a relationship, I think it places you in a position to build something.
Yeah, I think that's a big concept too. I think a lot of people are thinking about like, what can I get out of this? But not many people are thinking like, how can I just bring value to a friend group or to friends or to even strangers? And when you put that sort of value out, it does come back to you. Let's see. That's way behind now. Oh my God, there's something. All right.
Thank you everybody for sending these questions, by the way. This is my second time on Tea Time with Tynan. And it's so awesome to be able to hear from everybody. So if you've submitted a question, thank you so much.
I like this. This is pretty funny. Jake says, watching from the start at 2x speed to catch up, should we talk really slowly?
To know
when, Jake. When he has the double, it seems normal.
I love that idea. What's up, Jake?
Oh, what's up, Mark? Good to see you. Let's see. I wish YouTube could go 3.7x. All right. Here's a good one. I think we're gonna have different answers. How do you deal with friends that you seem to match, but maybe you don't see yourself as a long-term friendship?
Okay.
Like you and me.
Right, exactly. I personally love to have a large network of acquaintances. And I love to have folks that I can invite to parties, that I can introduce my friends to. That brings me so much joy. And I love being able to have a very large network of acquaintances. And I'm a little bit private in my close friendships. So that's how I think about it. How do you think about it?
I think I'm the exact opposite, right? Like I try to only spend time with people that I want to have a deeper friendship with, because I feel like, hey, I'm 40. I have such incredible friends. Like I love my friends, probably the best thing going on in my life, and my family too. And so any time I spend with someone who isn't going to be that kind of person is time I'm not spending with somebody who I do want to have really close friendship with. And so for me, that started in San Francisco when I was like working 18 hours a day on set. And I felt like, oh, I used to try to like hang out with all these acquaintances, and now I don't have time for that. And so when I only focused on my friends, I felt like more happier and more fulfilled. But I also think there was a time in my life when I was the opposite. So I think there's sort of, depending on what your goals are, both are totally valid, good ways to be.
I like your family too.
Thanks. Some hilarious. All right. Here you go.
Should I
I hate this guy's name so much. I try to get him to switch it every time. He never does.
Really?
Goat from Friday. Like, what is this? But I like the guy. I like the guy, just not the name.
Cool. Thanks for your question, by the way, Gout from Fried Okra. Should I stick with long-term friends even though they are assholes? Occasionally, they make nasty remarks. I have a lot of questions right now. And the answer that I would say is no, you should not stick with those people. They are not good friends. Yep. You can have a difficult conversation with them about those nasty remarks. I think that would be fair and appropriate, but no, what do you think?
Absolutely. You know, when back in the pickup days, one of the things Mr. used to say, it wasn't his original quote, but he used to say, good is the enemy of great. Yeah. And terrible is also the enemy of great. Like if you're spending time and energy on friends like that, that's time you're not spending, so that's, if I was in that situation, then I would be throwing cocktail parties, because I would say, I need a whole new funnel. I want to get high quality friends. I think a lot of people, for whatever reason, if they haven't had high quality friends, they don't know what it's like to have high quality friendships. And they think that friendships and relationships are just supposed to be like that. And they're really not. He asks also if it includes family. I'd say family it's trickier. I think with family, I would try a lot harder to be the bigger man and try to like mend that gap, mend that bridge. But sometimes you can't solve it, right?
Yeah. My siblings are contentious. That's difficult. Really I just want to say thanks for sharing this. It's hard. And I do think that building a network, and that phrase network can be such a dirty word, but building that group of people who could become your best friends is one of the greatest investments you can ever make. And it can 100%. It can absolutely change your life.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that, everything we focus on and how to improve our lives, earning more money or learning new skills or whatever, like working out, it's all great stuff. But I think the quality of people you have in your life is going to be the closest correlation to how enjoyable your life is. Right. And so part of why I wrote my book is I felt like people weren't proactively working on their social skills. Everybody proactively works on everything. And then they think social skills are like, well, it's just kind of whatever, whoever's in your life, they're going to be your friends, and you just do whatever you're going to do. And hopefully it works out, which is crazy when it's like the most important thing in your life. So, that's another thing I like about Nick's approach, is that it's like very proactive, and you can see how it pays dividends to be that proactive.
One little life hack, and then we'll get to this next question, which I can't wait for, is that when you always have your next party scheduled on the calendar, you have an obvious and immediate way that anytime you meet somebody remotely interesting, you have something that you can invite them to.
Yeah.
And so when you plan a party, and that's why within my book, it says you must plan your party 3 weeks out. Don't try to do it any sooner. Why? Because that 3 weeks gives you time to collect and build up an incredible guest list. That's one of the biggest fears. Who am I going to invite? How am I going to get 15 people? Trust me. Throughout the book, the whole thing is built on first start with your core group. All you need is 3 to 5 people that will say yes. That's going to give you the confidence to create an RSVP page, get them to sign up. Now, their names will be listed on the RSVP page. When somebody goes, they see that there's these other people that are attending, so then they're going to add their names. You can then start inviting your looser ties, your weaker connections. It all starts to snowball and to build.
I think the analog that I used to do is weekly burgers. So it's like probably 10% of the effort, 30% of the benefits or whatever, what Nick does. But it's the same sort of principle where I always knew that I could invite anybody I met, like, hey, some friends and I are having burgers this Sunday.
Yep.
And it's the same sort of thing where as you meet people, you're like, hey, you should come. And then this is like the next level of that.
Super good. I think it was a question above by Al-Amin.
Yeah, this was a good one. Yeah. Al Ibrahim. If I move to a new city where I know very few people, would throwing a party to meet more people be a good move, or is it better to get someone to invite me to a party instead? Good question.
I have strong thoughts, but I want to hear what you think.
I think we're probably going to agree, which is I would try to throw a party. I think in general, you want to be proactive. If you get invited to a party, you should go, and that's great. But I think the people who have the most success socially, really in any way, whether it's having a good friendship with somebody you already know, whether it's meeting new people, whether it's dating, are the people who really treat it like a job. And they're like, I'm going to be in charge of this and I'm going to make it happen. When you're waiting around, then maybe it's going to happen, maybe it won't.
I agree with Tynan. Do not underestimate the power that you have of being new to town. When you go up to people and you talk to them, hey, I just moved here. I'm trying to make new friends. I'm hosting a party because I'm meeting all these interesting people and I'm just bringing them together. The ability, you can say that for about the first year that you move to a city. And I tell you, it is incredible, the power. Everybody loves to meet somebody new. They live in that city and they probably believe that they live there for a good reason. I believe that most people who live in a city, Las Vegas, Austin, New York, they believe it's the best place for them. The majority of them do. And so by you coming there, it's a vote of confidence for their decision that they live in the right place. You being there for them is a positive. Wow, this is cool. This person moved to this city that I live in. And so you get to say, hey, I'm new to town. Are you guys friendly? I'd love to make new friends. I'm hosting this little get together with some of my other friends just to bring people together. It's a big win when you move to a new town to bring people together. And then you'll start to get invited to a lot of new parties.
It's really smart. I think one of the sort of things in social dynamics is if you say to somebody, I have no friends, immediately they think, well, there's probably a reason. And they're probably right, honestly. So it might be something you want to work on. But you can totally short circuit that. If you're new to town, it's like, well, of course he doesn't have friends. He's new here. Who would be his friends?
Yeah.
So it probably is like a huge opportunity. Probably more should light a fire of like, okay, I've got this year where I can say I'm new. I should really take advantage of that because it's probably gonna be the easy. It's like when people are in college, it's like that's an easy time to make friends. You should take advantage. That's probably another one. This is a good question for you. San says, what would you suggest if my space isn't big enough to host a cocktail party? I think I know what you're gonna say.
I'm curious. What do you think I'm gonna say?
Well, you had a tiny apartment in New York, and actually it was almost more fun that way.
Yes. So my friend Philip has a 290 square foot apartment, I think, in New York City. His kitchen is the size of a yoga mat. And I challenged him. I said, Philip, if anyone can do it, you can pull this off. And you know what? He did. He sent me this photo, a hilarious selfie of everybody packed into the room. Noah in Chicago, we wrote a big article. I think if you search on my site, like Nick Gray, small apartment party, you'll find it on Google. Noah hosted in his studio apartment. He had 32 people. It's absolutely incredible.
Awesome.
And many times, Hassan, what you just said is a limiting belief that my apartment is too small. My home is not nice enough. I live too far away. These are limiting beliefs that are holding you back from being the generous host. Why is it important to host at home? because it feels generous, because it feels vulnerable, and because you don't have to settle up with the bill at the end of the night. You control the space. So those are the things. For 95% of the people who ask me this question, they should host at home. However, 5% cannot. They don't have an elevator and they want their house to be wheelchair accessible. I know we've talked about that. Sure. Maybe they have a shared environment where they have family, or they have a elderly individual who lives with them, and the home's not always available for social situations. In those instances, yes, there are some other things that you can do. Maybe you live in an apartment that has a community space that you can borrow. Maybe you can go to the park and have a picnic. Maybe you could go to the library and there's a space in the library. I would almost challenge you to do anything but host it at a bar. That is the most common thing that people try to do. They host a party in a bar, or as I call them, bardies. Whenever I hear somebody say that they're hosting a party, I feel like the good luck leprechaun of party hosting dies, because it's just not a good environment. If you do host at a crowded venue, if you do for some unknown reason decide to do that, you must use name tags, because they will serve as a visual unifier for your group. Who's at this party? It's like you go to a birthday party at a bar, like who's here for the birthday party, you know? When you all have name tags, it's like a logo jersey for a sports team where everybody knows that you're like part of a team. You can visit my website at party.pro/venues, VENUES, for some other ideas on places that you can host when hosting at home is not an option.
I'd also say that weird is interesting to people. So if you go to a tiny, like you're going to remember the party that you had in a tiny apartment, and it's going to add like some element of fun.
Yeah.
Like my favorite family gatherings as a kid were my great aunt would host Christmas Eve. We were Italian. She would cook Italian food. And it was this tiny, tiny apartment, like 2-bedroom apartment, but nobody went in the bedroom. So it was just like this kitchen with a little table, and then a little living room with like this old style TV, you know, like the big wooden thing on the ground. And there'd be like hundreds of people there. Like you could barely move. And it was just like such a fun environment. Like maybe you don't want to spend your entire life in that environment, but I think people would remember a party in a tiny apartment. You know, I think that'd be fun.
I actually think, by the way, that sometimes those parties in the smaller spaces are more fun than the big.
Yeah.
Because have you ever been to like a dinner in this huge house? It feels empty.
It's also more awkward moving from group to group. If you're on a smaller place, you're bumping into people. It's kind of easier to like include people and pivot. That's something I hate about parties. It's like when I'm in a conversation I don't want to be in, but I want to be polite.
Yes.
But in a smaller space like your old New York apartment, that's really easy.
I never thought about that. That in a big apartment, you have to be so obvious when you're leaving the group. You have to be like, okay, I'm going on a walk, and you're walking for seconds to the next group.
Really bad.
Whereas in a big place, you just kind of like a small place, you just kind of like bump and grind your way around it. I know that's what you do. That's
what I do. This is a good one. Not a question, but dude, look at this. Jeff, I've been a reader for 11 years. I actually bumped into you in Wellington while you were with Derek Sivers. I remember this guy. I think you were skateboarding. Maybe it was like right near a convenience store. We were walking to like the waterfront or something. That was cool. I'm a zealous celebrity, and so when somebody bumps into me that recognizes me, it happens so infrequently. It's really fun for me.
It doesn't happen that infrequently. I'm shocked when I'm with Tynan that he gets recognized. We were in Tokyo, Japan, walking through a ginormous subway, and he was recognized. It's like my first time traveling with him, and that actually does happen a lot.
It only happens in weird places, which is very fun. Like I was in Hilo about to scuba dive, and this biker comes by. He's like, "You're Tynan."
Really?
Yeah, but it's never like in Vegas in like a casino where there's a lot of people or something.
Amazing.
Yeah, that was cool. I remember Jeff.
A friend of mine was on shows that were on like the WB and like TBS. None of my friends in New York knew who he was. But he goes, dude, you take me to a water park, I will be mobbed.
That's incredible.
Like certain venues of like different stratas of people, he's like, I will just be absolutely mobbed and you can't control. I was like, wow, that's amazing.
He goes to a lot of water parks.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Let's see. What is a natural or built trait of yours that naturally brings good relationships?
I'm a bit curious about your answer.
Okay.
Maybe we could say one for each other.
Okay.
I'll go first.
Okay.
So what is Tynan doing right now? He's hosting tea. Wherever Tynan goes, he has his tea gear with him. When Tynan, the very first time that I hosted him at my apartment in New York City, he brought his tea gear and he followed up and he told me what tea stuff I should buy. How many of you watching and listening now have learned about tea from Tynan? He's very knowledgeable about it and he makes it an open, safe space. And people love to learn new things. So I think that you are very good about introducing people to tea, and the number of people who you have introduced tea to. On my friends alone, I can count many friends who love the tea time experience that they've learned through you.
And tea time is a really good social time too.
Yeah.
That's part of why I like to do it for these YouTube things. I think what I would say about Nick is that he's very good at helping other people shine. Like if you're in a group with Nick and some random people you don't know, very quickly you're going to know what some things that you should like about those other people. So for example, we went on a cruise recently and he brought a friend, and like within the first day, I'm like, oh, she's so cool because he's kind of like highlighted and given her opportunities to tell these good stories.
Nice.
I think it makes people feel really comfortable and want to be around you because it's like, oh, if I'm around Nick, he's going to like really help me look good and feel good about myself. So
yeah, I like that. I feel like sort of the cheerleader for my friends because they all have such a unique thing. And this isn't like Forbes 30 under 30. It's not like I'm like, oh, I only hang out with people like Tynan. Like I have great people that are like teachers. I knew a guy who was a locksmith and he was an amazing locksmith. He had incredible Yelp reviews. He was like the highest rated locksmith in our town. And I love sharing that about him because he had such cool stories. I think your job as a host and as a connector of friends is to brag about your friends and to bring those cool things out.
Oh, look at this. Got a pre-order. This is worth it now. You made some money.
I think you may be one of my first 3 pre-orders, Alex. So thank you for that. The book.
Nick's going to give you free 1 hour party consultation.
Yes, now. Free 1 hour. My goal is to get 500 people to host a party using my methods once the book is launched. And I'm going to be focused on that for the next year of my life, maybe more, maybe a lot more.
Maybe a decade, given how long it's taken for this book to get out.
Yeah, it's taken 5 years for the book to get out. And Tynan has read it probably every year of that.
Yeah.
And certainly heard me speak about it. So thank you very much for the pre-order. You can find it on Amazon.com, or there might be a link on www.party.pro, which is a micro-site that I built for the book with over 55 articles of key concepts throughout the book and case studies of readers like Noah Adams in Chicago who read an early copy of the book and had success hosting their party.
Nice. Here's a good question. Where do you meet these remotely interesting people to invite?
Great question.
Yeah.
And I'm so glad that you asked this because I want to talk about this, where you meet these people. My friend Liz Schwartzbach in New York says whenever she meets somebody at a party, a gathering, a yoga class, an interaction like Starbucks, waiting in line somewhere, and she naturally will strike up a conversation. So maybe we need to speak about that just at a core level, how to strike up conversations with strangers. Whenever she thinks, wow, I'd like to continue this conversation, for her, that's a ding that she needs to invite them and say, hey, I'm hosting a party soon. Can I get your contact information? And I'll invite you to the next one. It's like you're constantly on the lookout for these interesting people. But let's talk about that. How do you start to have conversations with strangers? How can you have those moments start to happen? Rolling it back even. Mm-hmm. Do you have suggestions on that? That's one of the, I think I told you, a question I struggle with. If you know absolutely nobody, how can you even get your core group, the first 5 friends? How can you get them to come to your party?
So, I mean, there's probably a lot of different ways you could do it. I think one that worked for me in San Francisco is when I moved to San Francisco, I knew nobody. And in particular, I wanted to know tech people, right? Like not specific tech people, but I'm like, I'm a programmer. At the time, Austin wasn't a very tech city. Now it is. But when I moved from Austin, it wasn't. So I wasn't really in that world, and I wanted to meet tech people. And I knew that like if I cold email them, they're going to be like, this is some random guy from Texas. Well, what, you know, I couldn't offer any value in that programming sort of way or tech sort of way. So what I thought is like, well, what do I have that could be interesting or valuable to them? And for me, it was pickup. So that's sort of like not totally reproducible because that was something I'd spent a lot of time on, but it could be something totally different. And that just felt like a good fit because nerds don't know how to meet girls. But for you, it might be like a sport that you play. It's like, hey, I play volleyball. I'd love to get some people together, you know, so you go some volleyball thing and then you are the best at it and you try to get a game together, or you just cold email people who've shown some interest in some topic you're into. I think maybe in a broader sense, it's very trite, but like do things that you like to do. Like the amount of people I've met while drinking tea is incredible, right? Like in the beginning, we were talking about that woman in Amsterdam or even in Budapest, right? Like I'm really good friends with the people at Jiao Zhou now because I just love tea and that enthusiasm comes through. So it could be a sport, it could be a hobby, it could be something that you're excited to learn about.
So I got a good hack on the sport. So my friend Seth Haynes in New York City said, a lot of times people will say, join a sport, go to a yoga class, do something like this. Well, it can be hard to meet people through that. He said, the hack is for a sport, see if they have a kickball league. Because, do you know why?
No.
Because kickballs have the largest team sizes. The
nice.
team size in kickball it's usually way bigger than like basketball or something like that. And so you have this enormous team, and generally both teams will go out afterwards for a drink or something. And so he said that was my hack to meet a lot more people. I joined the right type of sport. I think that's neat. Something else a lot of people say, go to a yoga class or something like that. If you go to a class like that, you basically have 2 chances to meet people. 1 chance beforehand and 1 chance afterwards, because people go like after 5 minutes, everybody leaves those classes. And so just be mindful of that you can't really bounce around and meet folks a little bit.
Yeah. When I started taking ballet, I thought that I was like, this would be perfect. I'm going to meet all these people who are into ballet. They're in San Francisco. And I didn't meet a single person because it's just so like serious and there's no time to talk to people. Whereas like, I take tea classes in Vegas. I met tons of people through that because it's, it's a more social sort of thing.
Nice.
I think also like at a higher level, I think if you want to meet interesting people, it's really important to know what's interesting about you. What's the value that you bring, and it doesn't have to be some big skill you have or some big thing, but it's like you make people feel good. You're funny. You can, about the cool places in the city and you want to share that with people. When you know the value you bring, it gives you a lot of confidence and it gives you an easy way where you're like trying to get the conversation to that so that you can benefit the other people. And of course, you can show up to all these classes and stuff. And if you don't take that initiative to actually make that, get their information, invite them to a party, it's not going to happen. And I think sort of what Nick was saying earlier is realize that you're bringing them value. It's not like you're like, oh, will you please go to this party? But it's like, hey, you probably want to make friends too. I'm doing all the work where you can go to this party and you can make friends. If you're thinking about it like that, you're going to feel more confident and you're probably going to have better success because it's going to come through.
I get this question a lot, and you probably do too, which is like, how do I connect with these high value, high quality people? I think that's an interesting question there. Okay. And I hear that from people. How do I connect with these high value, super interesting people? And I'm thinking to them and I'm saying like, well, why do these people want to be your friend? Like, why would they want to connect with you? Like, what are you, like, you want to connect with them, but what are you doing for them? And that's one of the reasons that I wrote this book. When you host parties, when you can bring people together, you start the relationship by adding value. You probably hear this a lot, that if you're looking for a job for a startup or a small company, start to do work for them. Start to make them some sample social media graphics. Start to write them some blog articles. If you want to connect with Tynan, figure out what he's into and start to do that work for him. Hey, Tynan, I wrote reviews for all of your for all of the books that you purchased. I told my friends about Cruise Sheet. I created some new backlinks for it, etc.
Nick just wants me to get backlinks so bad.
And that for me is the value. And so with a book like this and with hosting a party, you're adding value from the get-go. It's not, I'd love to connect with you. It's, hey, come to this party. You're going to meet some cool people.
That's the number one thing. As soon as you get like any level of being public, everybody's like, hey, would you meet up with me so I can pick your brain? It's like, do you not understand how many of those requests? But it's when somebody actually like offers you something that sounds really interesting, like, hey, I'm really good at this. I want to teach you to. It's like, oh, well, that's a different category, you know? All right, let's see. Oh, I'm going to answer Isaac real quick because I like him. Off-topic question for Tynan: are you going to write more finance stuff for your Patreon site, or is that not something you plan to continue? Not sure. I haven't had much to say about it, but it's something when I do think about that when I have anything. Not sure.
The one
I want to say hi. Oh yeah, let's do this one. All right. Denny says, powerful tip regarding hiring photographer. Thanks, Nick. Oh, you just wanted a compliment. Super tactical. So excited for your book. Could you give us one more, whoa, that's different tactic for parties that's surprisingly affordable?
Yes, I will tell you this, but I want to note that this is an ultra advanced level tip. And I spoke, that's a really good one. I wasn't going to do it. but you could mention that one. I spoke to a group of Tony Robbins leaders, this women's group, and I happened to mention this idea, and they all were obsessed with it, and they jumped right to it. And I want to say, before I say this, because a lot of Tynan's readers and listeners and watchers and fans are ultra advanced type A pros, do not jump right to this. Read my book, host a basic party to learn the fundamentals, and then you should host a book swap party. Why a book swap party? Everybody has books. Everybody likes to read books. Everybody has books that they want to get rid of or trade and talk about, and it makes everybody feel smarter. Hosting a book swap is a very easy thing that you can do. After you've read my book and hosted the fundamentals, then you can do a book swap and you'll collect an even wider. I don't know. Have you ever been invited to a book swap?
Nobody invites me to that book swaps. Yeah, they know all I have is a Kindle.
Right?
I have to go to one of those free libraries first to be like, oh, I got a romance novel.
What if I showed up at a book swap and I was like, hey, everybody, here's Nick's book. I'm swapping it so you don't have to buy it.
That's right.
Okay, yeah. Thanks, but no.
That's a good one.
Yeah. And then which one are you?
Also, I actually really like this one. I was sad. So I don't go to these parties anymore, but I was sad to have missed this one because Nick hired a petting zoo to come to his party. And how much did that cost you?
It was like $350.
There's things like that, especially per person. It's really not much money.
Yes.
Like when you're thinking about like, okay, this is like, for the amount of people I'm at this party, this is not costing that much money. And again, it's like a weird thing that I bet everybody will always remember the time they went to a
incredibly memorable. And reaching out like, hey, I'm hosting a petting zoo party. Can you imagine? That is such a crazy idea. So these are advanced level themes. I really want to caution you from getting ahead of yourself by thinking about these themes because you are enough. The very idea of you hosting something, bringing people together, hosting in your home, that is enough. That is your base layer to start. As you go advanced and you want to reach out, like for that one, for the petting zoo, I think I had 65 people. That was a very advanced level skill. Good question, though. I love this.
That's a good question. Here's a good one, too. By the way, we're at an hour now. I have a family thing I have to go to, so I'm not going to go too much longer. So I'll answer some. We can answer a few more of these questions, but we're probably not going to do.
Let's do turbo. Let's just do a turbo.
All right, turbos, right?
Yes. Let's just answer all of them.
What are the big motivations for becoming more social? I feel like it's my own effort, not a lack of connections that will bring more success. I already have a couple friends who are willing to mentor. So what's the point?
What's the point of having all these people? Well, I can't say for you, but I can say for me, I used my network and my friends to help me launch my last business, Museum Hack, and it helped me become a multi-million-dollar company with top 10 ratings on all the social services. Having your friends to help celebrate your success and having a peer group that give you new ideas and can help raise you up, for me, is just invaluable. That's my quick thought.
I'm an introvert, so I love spending time alone. However, when I think about the best memories of my life, they all involve my friends, right? So maybe I need some time by myself to recharge, but doing X activity is fun. Doing it with like great friends is just like a whole nother level. So I think some people just have never had this experience of having amazing friends around them.
Yeah.
And I think that, this is the process to get it. And it's also one of these things where it's very difficult, and often the difficult things are the ones that bring the greatest rewards.
Yeah.
But you often don't realize that until you get to the end of it, right? Let's see.
The T letter says great URL. Shout out to Mike Newton.
Yeah. What's up, T letter? Mike.
Dang, we got to hang out now.
I know. I keep Mike, every time I come here, I mean to have tea with you and Nick. The problem is all my family's in Austin, and so I just don't see any of my friends. This is one Nick's going to be good at, lightning round. How will you deal with an annoying guest when it's rude to kick them out, but you can tell others are bothered?
So I will give my answer, and then I would like for you to say how you would handle it to diffuse the situation. What I will say is this happens way less than you would think. I get this question almost a lot of times. It is one of the top 5 fears of a new host. I'm hosting a party. Somebody's going to drink. What do I do with this individual? How do I handle this? And now they're worried about that. And I would say that after hosting hundreds of parties, I do a pretty good job of having that never happen because I filter those people out. I also host my parties on a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday night only so that people know this isn't a chance to get blasted drunk and it's just a 2-hour event. How would I handle it when it's rude to kick them out? I would pull them aside and say, dude, I'm so happy that you're here. can we catch up another time? And may I call you tomorrow? I'm so happy that you're here, but I need to manage my party. And so I'd use some words like that, like, I need to manage my party. Can we talk like and catch up and hang out and give them the validation and hope that that sort of brings them down a little?
I don't think I'm good at this. I think you're really good at this, and I've seen you do it a number of times. Not necessarily this exact thing, but times when there's like a difficult conversation that needs to be had in sort of like a public forum where it's challenging. Like even how you kick people out at the end, it's like very graceful and like everybody's gone.
Yes.
So I've never really been in. I think I filter so hard that I've never actually had that scenario.
More so, I'm thinking, can you think back to your days in pickup when you've had maybe an aggressive guy who you've gone to talk up to his girlfriend or something like that? I think those are similar situations in that you're trying to diffuse the situation and get them on your team or some way. Maybe I don't know. Do you see a similarity?
Yeah, so I don't know that I have a short enough answer to give. Cool. I think that's like a whole can of worms.
Okay.
Tynan, why aren't you looking for new friends? When do you decide to have enough? It was just, so I do still make new friends by accident. And I figured that I'm exposed to enough people that I'm going to have to make new friends by accident. So I try to not make them. And the real reason is I just love my friends so much. And it's sort of like why I stopped traveling to too many new countries is because I would rather get to know Japan, Hawaii, Hungary better, because I think there's more value in depth at this point than breadth. That wasn't always true. There was a time when I really needed the breadth of friends, right? Because I was starting out, maybe with not so many. But, for example, like, so a good friend I have now, my close friend Daria, she got engaged to this guy and they moved into our neighborhood. And now he and I are really good friends because, hey, we've been around and we get along. So for me, it was just that the value of deepening friendships was greater than the value of more friendships.
A lot of people saying they got tea from you.
I know we got some tea shout outs. I love that. Tea letter, great community builder and social. I agree. The thing about tea as a social lubricant is I think it creates a space for good conversation, but it doesn't degrade over time as people get more drunk. It's also, you can have tea like we've had for over an hour here, or back when I used to date, I would always do tea dates because if it's not going well, it's like, well, we steeped it once, time to go. Let's see. Someone got, a lot of tea. The problem is that we're like behind on the, all right. Logistical question. I reserved a 3-bedroom Airbnb in Tulum for 5 weeks next winter to work with friends. That's cool. Suggestions for easier logistical planning to ensure we don't overbook. Same question for cocktail parties. Let you answer that while I look at more.
Denny, I don't fully understand your question about suggestion for easier logistical plan to ensure we don't overbook. Same question for cocktail parties. What I will say about cocktail parties is if you want 15 to 20 people to show up to your cocktail party, that's the number that I suggest. You need to invite more than that. Is everybody going to say yes? No, they're busy. Do they not like you? Maybe, but also they're busy. And so I even have that happen to me where I need to invite a lot more people than 15 if I want 15 to come. And you can be mindful of it as well. You should hear back from them soon. If I didn't answer your question, send me an email, nick@party.pro. I'll try to think more about it.
A couple good little quick ones. People say, if you join combat sports, you will basically get invited to the next UFC pay-per-view party. Man, UFC people are really cool, or MMA people are really cool. You're going to get beaten up, so you're paying the penalty to make those friends, but UFC is fun.
Really good idea. That's very cool.
Good one from Mike, T-Letter. Don't be afraid to share your quirks. I love hearing about unique and interesting things about people. One of the biggest things I learned about pickup is before pickup, I thought I need to conform to this very generic idea of what a likable person is. And because I was so weird, I didn't conform to that. So I felt paralyzed. The biggest thing I realized is what makes us interesting are our quirks. And not everybody's going to match with everybody. But when you do match based on what's unique about you, it's a much stronger bond. So I 100% agree on that. This is an interesting one, too, from Isaac. I used to host a massive party every few years and invited friends from all parts of my life. I still get people a decade later telling me how fun those random connections are made.
Really cool, right?
That was really cool.
Really interesting. I think that there's something interesting there. I used to host a massive party every few years. Isaac, I'm trying to get people to host a party every few weeks.
Yeah. It's on a different path.
Yeah.
All right. This is a good one for you. I think you're really good at this. How do you manage the time of the party? It's only 2 hours. You're trying to fit in icebreakers. Lots of people don't show up promptly. And the point is to have more time for free conversation. No free conversation.
No, there is free time. And I jokingly call that unstructured time. And there's plenty of time for that. But here's what it is. And you had a fallacy in your question right there. Lots of people don't show up promptly. I will tell you, when you host a 2-hour party where you have a start time and an end time, and it is only 2 hours, people show up on time. I hear so many shocked hosts that say, I can't believe it, by 7:10, my party started at 7, by 7:10, everybody was there. That's because, do you ever get an invite to like a barbecue that starts at 4? That's like dinner. You're like, well, it starts at 4, but I probably want to eat it at 6. So nobody shows up. There's no end time. It starts at this ambiguous. I remember once I was going to my friend Lindsay's birthday in New York City, and the party was scheduled to start at 7 o'clock. So at 6:45, I sent her a message. I said, hey, I'm on the way. Do you want me to grab anything? And she called me. Oh my God, don't come over now. I'm not ready. I'm still like getting, I said, well, why would you invite us? It was like 7 on a Friday. And she's like, well, because it's 7, you'll show up at 8. The party's going to go till 1 or 2. Like, why would you come at 7? And I couldn't imagine that. So when you host a 2-hour party, people will show up on time and then they'll leave on time as well.
Could also do something that we do on cruises, which is 2 push-ups for every minute late.
That is
Put it in the invite. It's a binding contract.
It's a great way to get your friends to be on time.
Yeah. Last question, and then I really have to go. Cocktail parties sound great for younger people. Would you still do these parties when you settle down? Guess you're both single and no kids yet. I'm married. I'm not single, but also I don't have parties.
Guess you're both single. I don't
Wow.
know.
I mean,
did we say that? Did I ever?
You do look single, though.
Damn. I got absolutely roasted by Oliver.
That's true.
Question from
Amazing
Oliver.
Kids just popped in right now.
Yes, all these. Come on in, 9 girlfriends. So Oliver, great question. I talk about hosting with families and how you handle kids at parties. And many times parents can use kids as a conversational crutch to avoid that real quality adult time. And so what I suggest, and people who've read my book suggest that have families, is hire a babysitter for the kids at the party and throw a simultaneous kid party in another part of the house. Why is this helpful? It allows the safety and security of having a babysitter so that parents can have adult time in order to mix and mingle. So that's something I've seen a lot of success with. I think it's even more important for older people to do this because having friendships and meeting new people keeps us young and makes us feel alive. And it's even harder to make friends as you get older.
And you don't want to fall into that trap where it's like a couple and their only friend is their spouse. Like there's nice parts about that, but it's also like a very small world.
Yes.
That, just different things you can do with bigger groups of people, different with different interests.
Best way I'll make sure that never happens to me?
Don't get married.
Don't get married.
Yeah, you're doing great so far.
No spouse. Don't get a spouse. No problem.
All right, guys. I have to go. I've got a family thing. I want to thank every one of you for coming, for asking all the great questions, to give us interesting things to talk about. I would love to do more of these. I know I haven't done them in a while. I've been traveling like crazy. And so like every weekend, I'm like, can I do it this weekend? And it's like I'm in a weird time zone or I'm on a cruise or something. Please follow this channel. It's I only do these. It's do the notifications. I don't really care about subscribers, but I want you to show up for these. And I don't want to have to post a blog post every time to make sure people show up. So if you subscribe, you're going to see the next one. Also, huge thanks to Nick for coming on and sharing his perspective on all this stuff. It's like I think it's like very complimentary to my sort of stuff, but very different. So I think it's cool to share that. And I've benefited so much from his party. So I'm glad to have you on.
One thing you can do to help Tynan's channel is 1, hit that like button on this video. 2, hit subscribe and ding that bell so you'll get notifications when he posts in the future. The other thing that'd be a big help is if you see Tynan mention a tea time in the future, give it a retweet. If you're on Twitter, if you're on Facebook or something else, help to amplify that signal, because you know what? The more questions like you've been asking, amazing, it encourages him to do more of these. And so if you can even invite and bring one friend maybe to the next tea time with Tynan, how cool would that be? More questions makes him want to do these more often.
It's true. All right, guys. Thanks so much. See you next time. Keep waving to end broadcast.